back-to-back games now with at least 30 points for both Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, something that hasn't happened for Celtics teammates since Larry Bird and Kevin McHale back in 1988. You want to talk about Jayson Tatum. Everybody wants to talk about Jayson Tatum. Let's do that. Denver fans, and again, Denver fans, or at least Celtics fans in Denver, but nevertheless, he's getting MVP chance in Denver, where you have the actual MVP, the defending MVP for the home team, Nikola Jokic, who I believe, if I had a vote, which certainly I don't, he's the MVP again this year. And yet it's Jayson Tatum who is outplaying him, getting the MVP chance on the road. He was asked about it, said obviously it's a great feeling. It's even more special getting it on the road than getting it at home, because obviously of just the environment, and takes you to a new level. And you were talking about, and obviously we want your thoughts. You were talking about, can Jayson Tatum be a guy that takes your team to that championship level? We extensively last week talked to Jared Weiss about, is he in the MVP conversation? Truly, in my mind at the time, and I've gone back and forth with people like Cedric Maxwell, among others, on Twitter since, when he was calling me out about my opinion. I said, no, I don't think he is. As great as he's playing, as much as he could be first team all NBA like Evan's talking about. To be truly in the conversation, it means you have a chance of winning. That's how I view it. You can't just be like 4 or 5 and it's a landslide in the votes. For whoever wins the thing, you got to have a chance to win the award to really be in the conversation. And hard pressed to see him beating out the likes of Joker, Giannis, and Embiid. But let me ask you a hypothetical here. If the Celtics continue to do what they're doing collectively and actually finish with the second seed in the East, ahead of Embiid, ahead of Giannis, obviously Joker's in the other conference, am I selling Tatum short this year?
It's there's a little bit of like a presidential election kind of thing to these MVP races, and it's hard. They're slow moving, right? The momentum's slow moving. Actually what it's a little bit like is when they talk about in the Navy trying to turn an aircraft carrier around. You just can't do it instantly. It just takes a while. So I can't see him winning it this year, but I can see him being on a bunch of ballots, and being 5th in the race, something like that. And then that sets him up for next year. So the MVP thing is a valid thing to be talking about with him. He should definitely be one of the candidates. I don't think anybody should think he's going to win it. Their schedule down the stretch is really tough. I think it's 3 non-playoff teams and everybody else, and a lot of teams have skin in the game that they're going to be really trying to fight for their own position. So it's not going to be an easy stretch. Right now, they're totally healthy. We know in the NBA you can't count on that from day to day. I actually think bringing Nesmith back is going to be a big thing, because they're going to need him. It's like having an extra arm in the bullpen, and you can't have enough. And if they're going to have a deep playoff run, they're going to need that guy, because something's going to go wrong. Everything looks great right now, but they're going to be going up against tougher teams and playoff series, and it's not going to, Peyton Pritchard isn't going to be making all his threes, and it's just not going to be as easy as it is right now, which is not to criticize what's going on right now. They're doing everything they should right now, but it's just not going to be this easy going forward. As far as Jayson Tatum, what I'm focused on is this question of, if you go back to 1980, starting with the Bird Magic era, the modern era of the NBA, all but one of the championships has been won by 17 players. So we're talking 41 championships, and they've been hoarded by 17 guys. The one outlier is the Detroit Pistons of Chauncey Billups.
Mm-hmm.
We can't call him a great player. But all the others, if you didn't have one of those 17 guys, you weren't going to win it. So we're talking Magic, Larry, Moses Malone, Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, Hakeem, Tim Duncan, Shaq, Dwyane Wade, Garnett, Kobe, Dirk, LeBron, Kauai, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Giannis. Those 17 guys, it's not like this in any other sport where you have to have that guy to win the championship. And I put together this list back in 2011 when I was doing my book, The Soul of Basketball. It sounds like I'm hawking my book, but I'm really doing this to talk about Jayson Tatum.
Yeah.
And I had the list, and back then it was like a dozen guys. or some, maybe 13. And I showed it to Mitch Kupchak right before he was GM of the Lakers at the time. And I was out in LA and I showed him the list. And he looked and he goes, well, the interesting thing about this list is you never know who's going to be the next guy. And some of these guys on the list, they came out of nowhere. Dirk came out of nowhere. No one saw him winning the championship going in. Kawhi Leonard came out of nowhere with the Spurs the first time. Dwyane Wade. That's how it would be for Tatum. He's been building up, but if he were to make a run through the playoffs and win it all somehow at the end, he'd be one of those surprise guys that got the momentum going and won it. But he's showing all the signs of these other guys. He's showing all of the prerequisites. His team is playing defense. He's got this balance between looking out for himself and helping others. He's got the size and the strength to dominate and the athleticism to dominate in a variety of ways. He's making big shots. He can get to the basket. He's going to the free throw line now like he's never done before, which is always a huge indicator of superstardom in the NBA, getting to the free throw line. So you look at all of it together, I just, that to me is the turning point when you can start to say to yourself, is Jayson Tatum capable of being one of those guys? Because you can't win the championship without that guy, and it's got to be him.
So I'm just kind of thinking about this as we sit here, but certainly in any sport, but we're focused on the NBA. There are tiers of player, right? There's scrub, there's role player, there's good player, there's great player, there's all-star, there's superstar, but then you get to, all-time player. And I certainly believe, I don't think that by definition, Jayson Tatum is a superstar yet. I think he's playing at a superstar level, but I think you need to do it for an entire season to be called a superstar. And we know what happened the first half of this year. We know what happened parts of last year. He's not there yet. He'll get there. I certainly believe Jayson Tatum will be a superstar, and I'm not alone in that. I've been saying it for years. So have other people. This is not a hot take by any stretch, but there are times that, like, I was listening to NBC one night. It was the pregame show. Chris Mannix is on. And he's saying how he believes that one day Jayson Tatum is going to be the Celtics' all-time leading scorer. He's going to pass John Havlicek. Now, he's like 20,000 points away from doing that. Mathematically, Kenny, sure, he can do it in the next 10, 12 years easily. He is certainly of the age where if he stays healthy, he can do it. Now, I'm not 1,000% convinced in today's era generation of basketball that he's going to be a Celtic long enough to do it. I hope he is. But you can't, we can't be convinced that he's going to be another Kobe, another Duncan, another whatever. Like, guys do change teams. But do you ever feel like in watching Jayson Tatum's growth, he's 24 and he's setting all sorts of statistical records for, doing this by X age. At what point are we comfortable saying that we think we might be watching an all-time player in Jayson Tatum?
Oh, you'll know that after he wins the championship. If he doesn't win the championship, then we will not be having that conversation. Unless he's one of those rare few, like Charles Barkley, where you have to give him his due, and he was a great player. But Charles is still an outsider, and every time you watch TNT,
he's reminded of
Shaq always turns and says, Kenny, you know what I'm talking about. And he starts talking about winning championships, and he's leaving Charles out of the conversation. This is not football. Dan Marino is one of the great players of all time. He didn't win the championship, and he can get by on that in football. Ted Williams can get by in baseball. Basketball, this goes back to Bill Russell. Bill Russell is the most influential player in the history of basketball because he established that to be a great player, and he did it at Wilt Chamberlain's expense, to be a great player, you have to win championships. And not only did he show that you have to win championships, he showed how you win them by emphasizing defense first and teamwork and making the other players better. He established all that. When Michael Jordan was leading the league in scoring and doing his impression of Wilt Chamberlain, that wasn't enough for Michael Jordan. He knew he was nobody until he won championships. And it was the mission that drove him. It's driven every player ever since Bill Russell. And so if Jayson Tatum isn't winning a championship, especially with the Celtics, he just doesn't rate. He's a really, really good player, but he wasn't one of these 17 that we're talking about. You have to be one of the 17 to be really, really special in this age.